evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael P. Marnick, and I'm the, at least for another year, the chair of the zoning board of appeals of the town of Orleans, and this is a regular meeting. And present with me are Messrs. Waugh, Taub, Cole, and Mulligan, constituting a quorum. And also present is the board secretary, Amber Dauphiné, and the building commissioner of the town of Orleans, Tom Evers. We have 3 items on the agenda, one of which is the review and approval of the minutes of the June 19th, 2019 meeting, which were recirculated tonight. We could take up the housekeeping of approving those minutes or entertaining corrections or suggestions.
Move the approval.
Mr. Mulligan moves the approval. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Cole. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Following the last meeting, this was the June 19th meeting. The last meeting was the principally a discussion of the election of officers. Those minutes haven't been prepared yet. We'll take those up in due course after our sabbatical, I think, in August, unless there's new applications with any great pressure. No, our plan is to have this August sabbatical in. So these 3 items tonight are the last of the group, first of which, and 2 of them, by my previous apology, were rescheduled from that last meeting, which would have been on July 3rd, now having been republished and noticed. The first of which is the case number 2115. That's the application for a special permit of Mr. and Mrs., well, Jane and Richard Duntramont, for a special permit under General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, under Orleans zoning bylaw, Section 164, 3C, 1B, and 164, 21A, yard dimensions, 164, 43, and 44, for alteration to a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling to have an addition onto a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling. The dwelling and additions are non-conforming with respect to the front and rear setback requirements. This property is located at 33 Alden Road, Orleans map number 13, parcel number 91. Is any member of the board in any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents which would constitute a conflict of interest in the opinion of that board member, or otherwise ought to be disclosed to the board, his colleagues, and the public? There's no positive response. Therefore, I declare the full complement of the board as present to be indifferent and impartial. So, Mr. Little, are you presenting this?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Little from Ryder and Wilcox, and with me in the second row is the project architect, Rich Morangel, and Jane Duntramont, the property owner. Jane and her husband are proposing 2 additions to a pre-existing non-conforming cottage on Alden Drive. We've provided you with a plot plan, and Rich Morangel has also provided you with building elevations and plans of the proposed work. For the purposes of this application, we're referring to, there are 2 cottages. One is Cottage 1 and one is Cottage 2. The proposed work is occurring on Cottage 1, which is the southwesterly of the 2 cottages. According to the assessor's records, both cottages were built in 1950. The addition on the front of Cottage 1 consists of a half-bath addition for the master bedroom. And the non-conforming nature of that is on the Alden Road street side, on the west side, the existing dwelling is 10.2. The closest part of the proposed addition on that side is 10.4 feet. The addition on the rear of Cottage 1 consists of a bathroom expansion and a kitchen expansion. In the rear, the existing cottage is non-conforming by 23.9 feet. The proposed addition would be non-conforming by 15.9 feet. And for Mr. Waugh's benefit, I would like to point out that the past few years, Zoning Board of Appeals have adopted the Gale decision with respect to nonconformities for pre-existing nonconforming structures, which allows a nonconformity to be extended provided the Zoning Board of Appeals approves it with a special permit. It does not allow new nonconformities. New nonconformities would require a variance, and I just wanted to point that out to Mr. Waugh. He asked me a question about that earlier. The additions result in an increase in building coverage on the property of 223 square feet. The percentage of increase is going from 15.05% to 16.44%. I submitted an administrative review for this project to the Conservation Commission, which is a simple one-page application, and on June 18th, they approved the work that is within their jurisdiction, and I would like to provide you with a copy of the approved administrative review.
This will be an exhibit with this application.
So as to the special permit criteria for the project, we believe the site is adequate for the two additions. The building coverage on the site is increasing by only 223 square feet. The site is suitable for the additions. The additions are located in areas that will not impact the abutting properties. There would be no additional impact on traffic flow or safety. There would be no new impact on neighborhood visual character associated with the additions. They are both modest in scope and do not exceed the height of the existing structure. There would be no noise other than temporary noise impacts that will occur during construction, and the dumpster will remain on site to contain all debris during construction. And as to the impact of groundwater quality, recharge volume, and water quality of coastal and freshwater bodies, we believe that the new entrance and the small addition will not have a negative impact on these valuable resources. If I may answer any questions, please.
Is this plugged into the sewer?
This is not plugged into the sewer, and I think it'll be quite a long time before the sewer finds its way down to the end of Nauset Heights. There are other places in town that
Other
are...
than any additional bathroom, plumbing, sewerage needs that are evoked by the expansion?
No, the septic design is based on the number of bedrooms. A bathroom or kitchen expansion does not impact septic flow. That is just bedrooms, and the total number of bedrooms on this site are remaining the same. Mrs. Donchermout's daughter actually owns the other cottage on the property.
The basic issue of variance, again, from my standpoint, what we're doing is we have a situation where it's now 23.9 and we're making it greater,
Intensifying it,
intensifying it.
yes.
And your contention is that basically the intensification does not make it a variance.
My contention is that this is allowed by special permit
Right.
because of the Gale case.
When was that proposed, or?
It's not proposed, it's
When
case
was
law.
it case law start, what was the date of the case law?
I don't have that information with me.
Soon, I
Mr.
mean, was
Wong?
it years ago, or?
A few,
Approximately
Five.
6 years ago.
5 or 6 years ago? Okay. Okay.
Mr. Waugh, I will provide you with the Gale case. I think it came out of either Brewster, Chatham or Brewster.
I'll yield to that determination. I just was wondering what the specific was, and if John says that's what it is, I'm happy with it.
This is more than we usually see, the difference between the existing, I'm using the word badly here, encroachment and the proposed. There is quite a bit of difference.
there is, and if anybody had the opportunity to visit the site, they would see that the impact on the neighbor to the rear of the property is negligible.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Mr. Little, let the record reflect that, and I did not include it with the papers I brought tonight, but I had, previous to the original assignment of this case for hearing on July 3rd, communication on the telephone and with email to a Mr. and Mrs. Mellon, M-E-H-L-I-N, who were notified, originally expressing some concern that the amount of notice which they received, and at that time it was by certified or registered mail, was a little bit insufficient. I explained that I was informed that the Mellons had not been in communication with the applicants. Subsequently, and with no further conversation, I received an email from the Mellons in substance stating that they had met with the D'Entremonts and had viewed the plans and didn't have any objection. They were satisfied, or their questions were answered. So I just wanted that, I will include that email correspondence with the record. Because originally there was some objection, and apparently the right thing was done. That is the communication that all the members of the board like to see between the applicants and their neighbors. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? And I didn't mean to cut off any members of the board from any further questions. I just wanted to put that on the record that it looked like there was an objection, but it turned out not to be one.
My only question is on the coverage.
Yes.
Can you address lot coverage?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, the percentage increase is going from 15.05% to 16.44%. It's 223 square feet, and as I brought up previously, we're intensifying a nonconformity, and we're asking to do so with granting of the special permit.
And so can you address how that relates to note 5?
Note 5 states, it really doesn't have any impact on Note 5 states that if you increase the coverage over 4,000 square feet, a special permit is required. What Note 5 also says is building coverage cannot exceed 15% on the lot, and a special permit cannot be granted to exceed 15% building coverage on the lot. The building coverage here is 15.05%, which exceeds the 15, and we're planning on increasing it by 223 square feet to 16.44%.
So you're differentiating it because you're already over 15%.
It's already non-conforming.
Any further questions? Then in that case, I will close the hearing and ask the pleasure of the board.
I would have no problem with indicating that we agree on a special permit as stated by the applicant.
Would you make that motion, Mr. Wall?
Make that a motion.
Very well, is there a second?
Second. I move.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just, I just, because I'm always being educated in here, I just want to say that the essence of Gale, at least as I grabbed it quickly, has to do with whether the project will or will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing nonconformity. And I think in this instance, it satisfies that
I think
requirement.
so. Nobody's given any evidence to
Right.
lead us to and our proper finding would be drafted in the opinion. All those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I will write the opinion.
Thank you. I'm up again.
Okay.
Congratulations.
You're up again. What do you got on this?
For the record, Ms. Dauphiné, the voting members, the motion carried unanimously with Mr. Cole not voting, Ms. Van Giesen being a regular member, cast a vote approval.
Mr. Cole abstained then?
No, I'm an alternate. We
He's-
have
okay.
5.
He would have been an alternate. Let the record reflect that Ms. Van Giesen came after the meeting was convened, but in time to hear the evidence of the hearing. We have case number 2116, which is the application of Nauset Farms. Thank you, Mr. Monaghan.
Not to interrupt, but thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it. Thank you.
ma'am. Nauset Farms has applied for a special permit as set forth in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 6, under Orleans zoning bylaw, Section 164, 3C2, 164, 21A, Note 3, and 164, 43, and 44 to raise and replace a pre-existing non-conforming apartment dwelling with storage area. The existing and proposed building coverage on the site exceeds 15%. This property is located at 199 Main Street, Orleans, map number 35, parcel number 87. Has any member of the board had any communication with the applicant or the applicant's agents which would constitute a conflict of interest or otherwise ought to be disclosed to the colleagues on the board or to the public? There's no positive response, therefore I declare that the members of the board are indifferent and impartial. Those members to consider that this will be all members in attendance with the exception of Mr. Cole, who will be allowed to inquire and consider, but not vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, David Little from Ryder and Wilcox, representing Nauset Farms. So the owner of Nauset Farms is proposing to tear down the apartment building in the rear of the property. In 2016, we appeared before the Orleans Historic Commission for approval to demolish the 1860 structure. And it was determined at that hearing that it was not a preferably preserved historic structure, and they did vote to allow the structure to be torn down, and I have a copy of the minutes of that meeting that I would like to submit into the record.
Thank you.
The minutes referring to this are on page 2. And if you'd like, would you like me to read it into the record, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, I'll circulate it, but it would be a lot more.
Public hearing 199 Main Street, circa 1860. This house is owned by Warren Waugh. He wants to demolish it and replace it with a building of approximately the same size proportions.
I met him once, I really hope.
Bernadette McLeod is working with him on the design. The commission made a site visit along with McLeod and Waugh. The commission viewed the inside and outside of the house. The only remaining historical detail left is the interior stair railing to the 3rd floor. The inside of the building retains none of the original rooms or floors, and the outside has been covered with siding. All the ornamental brackets that one would expect to find on a house of this date are gone. For this reason, Dorothy Braumer and Bryant Bessie seconded a motion that this house is not a preferably historic structure and may be torn down. Motion passed. The commission requests the owners take photos of the interior of the house before and during demolition and of the outside of the house during demolition. The Historic Commission will add these photos to the file for the property. The hand railing should be saved but will not be possible to reuse, as the building codes do not allow for stairs as steep as the original stairs. In addition to the Historic Commission, Stephanie Sequin of our office appeared before the Board of Health for the installation of a new septic tank to be connected to the existing leaching components on the property. The septic system has an approved capacity of 550 gallons per day, which was deemed adequate for the 4 proposed bedrooms and 830 square feet of retail storage area. And I have a copy of a letter which Bob Canning was nice enough to provide me with today, acknowledging the Board of Health's approval for the project.
So it's a leaching pit, not a leaching field?
There are three very large leach pits, and they've been inspected. Their capacity is suitable, and the Board of Health is allowing us to install a new tank, which, by the way, we don't need to do, but because of the proximity of the tank to the construction, we thought it would be best to install a new tank and a D-box because of the traffic and construction equipment that's going to be in the area. So this was a voluntary request by the owner. The health agent conducted a site inspection in 2015 and observed 3 apartments containing a total of 5 bedrooms. The new design has 3 apartments containing a total number of 4 bedrooms and retail storage. The 830 square feet of retail storage is going to be used for storage of non-perishable dry goods and paper products for the Nauset Farm business out front. The apartments will provide housing for year-round residents and employees. On the site plan, I provided you with a zoning compliance table. If I could draw your attention to the lower right-hand side of the site plan. As to the front yard setback, the existing setback is 18.5. It's becoming 29.5, so we're eliminating the non-conforming nature on the street side. As to the side yard setback, it is 43.3, which complies with zoning. The proposed setback is being increased again to 46.3. The setback in the rear is 37, where 25 is required, and the new setback will be 29.9, also in compliance with zoning requirements. And as to the building coverage, we exceed 15%. The existing building is 6,323 square feet. The new building will be 6,320 square feet. So it's essentially the same size building. We exceed, but we're not increasing any nonconformity for this project. And as to the building height, the existing and proposed building height will be 29.1 feet, which conforms with a 30-foot height requirement for the zoning bylaw. So we believe that the site is adequate for the reconstruction. The building coverage on the site remains the same, and the new building will be located in the same general footprint as the original structure. We believe the site is suitable for the new structure. The one horizontal dimensional nonconformity is being eliminated, and the existing building coverage nonconformity essentially remains the same. There would be no new impact on traffic flow or safety. We believe the neighborhood visual character will be improved by the new building. The existing building is in a state of disrepair. As I mentioned earlier, the building will tie into an existing Title V septic system with a new septic tank that was approved by the Board of Health to tie into the existing septic system. All stormwater will be retained on the site. Utilities and public services are not impacted by the project. And the only noise or litter associated with the project would be the temporary noise and litter during construction, and we will maintain a dumpster on site to contain all construction debris. And as to the impact on groundwater quality, recharge volume, and water quality of coastal and freshwater bodies, we believe these valuable resources will not be impacted. So please fire away with your questions, and hopefully I can answer them. Thank you.
So your chart of the zoning compliance table, that's all that the zoning, this table includes all the dimensional requirements set forth by the zoning bylaw and how the proposed structure would deal with it.
Yes, sir.
You're not looking, you don't need any relief other than that.
No, I don't believe so.
Any questions?
The only comment I want to make is I understand that one of the owners of this farm is Warren Waugh, and I just want to make the point that there's absolutely no relation to me at all.
Very well.
Met him once.
Any other questions? Is there anyone present wishing, Mr. Todd?
I just have a
Well,
question.
yes.
So traffic flow and safety, can you describe how the storage area will be accessed and whether that creates a different routing of vehicles than presently happens now?
So if I can draw your attention to the elevation plans, the elevation of the portion of the building that faces the Nauset Farms on the top, that shows where an overhead door where the storage is going to be located. So that's directly accessed from the building to the house.
So is that here? That's
correct.
Okay.
And then the rear elevation where there are 3 garage doors, those are simply for vehicular storage underneath.
So will trucks back through this parking lot to back up to that door?
Presently, and this is something that was done, I believe, at the request of neighbors in the past, all deliveries are made by pulling into Great Oak Road and then backing down here to this part of the parking lot. All the deliveries occur there. There will be no deliveries that come in from Manito Way to that site, and we're comfortable with any conditions to that effect.
And during construction, while new utilities are brought in from the street, including a pretty sizable water line for a sprinkler system, where will that be run from, and what disruption will that cause?
I don't have an answer to that, but it is, I'm glad you brought that up. It is required to be sprinkled, and they are planning on doing that.
So presumably that'll come from Main Street, not Manito, right?
I would expect it would have to come down Manito.
Oh,
I don't know that. If it's something that you need an answer to, I don't
I
have,
trust it'll be dealt with. I just think, again, traffic flow and safety, this is a busy parking lot. And I think that it's just going to be affected by this. And I want to make sure that that's all thought through, both for the construction phase and then afterwards with the storage being back there.
just knowing the site and the location of all the septic components, Matt, I believe the new water line will have to come, if, the new water service will have to come off Manito Way. I don't know what type of a water line exists, so I'm anticipating that it's just going to be a service off the existing water main.
And presumably so that they have rights to
Oh, yes.
to access Manito.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And this actually used to be referred to as 7 Manito Way in the old days.
Was any part of the old building used for storage and accessory use to the market?
Yes, I have a letter from Bob Canning where he made a walkthrough of the building on October 15th, 2015, where he made the determination that one unit on the first floor had 2 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen, dining area. Then there was a second room, but it wasn't considered a bedroom. A second floor unit had a kitchen, living room, bedroom, with a third floor bedroom. And then in the basement, at the time of the inspection, they found one efficiency unit with 2 storage rooms in the rear of the basement. So whether they were being used, Mr. Chairman, I don't know, but there were 2 storage rooms in it at the time. And
What I'm looking at here is we've got a segment of the new building consisting of 830 square feet on the ground, which is being used for storage, and I would wanted to satisfy myself that the use of storage, now that's a mixed, now you have a building, the new building has mixed uses, and I wanted to see, explore whether that was consistent with the use of the old building. It doesn't have to be identical.
I don't know that. All I can say is with the Board of Health, they were aware that the storage is there and the flow is suitable to accommodate the 800 square feet of proposed storage, and we're comfortable with a condition that it's non-perishable goods and paper. There's no, it's just for some extra place to store things.
But I don't know that that's necessary, subject to any thinking by any other members of the board.
I do think
I
that,
didn't think that, I'm just trying to do the checkbox as to whether we ought to be concerned that there's now a mixed use. There was one before. That's,
I would like to add, I've lived in East Orleans since '78, and I've seen I remember the days when Fancy's farm stand was an 8-by-10 farm stand, literally, and I've seen the changes that have occurred on this property, and I think what Mr. Waugh has done here has been certainly a benefit to the community. He's done a very good job with everything that he's done on the site and followed through with everything that he's supposed to do, and that's just an observation that I would like to make.
So both the retail use and the residential use are allowed uses by right in the district. So if the storage is accessory to the retail, I don't see why that wouldn't be an allowed use. Again, the mixed use and the 3 apartments throws it into a different building code realm, but that's not for us to.
Yeah, this did not go through, it wasn't required to go through site plan review. This will be done at time of application.
So it will go through site plan review in the future?
No, it's not,
Or
I
no?
don't believe it's required to go through site plan review. It's not a change of views. But at time of building application, because all those concerns would be with that.
Very well.
I'll move to grant the special permit.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Oh, excuse me, ma'am.
I'm a neighbor. I live, my name is Nancy Noonan, and I live at 15 Manito. And I'm in favor of the project as I understood it. I was not aware that they're going to be adding storage to the building where the apartments are. I'm not against that, but currently, a couple of my neighbors have asked about the trailers that are there as storage. I don't mean big trailers, but they have storage trailers between Nauset Farms, the store, and the house. And so maybe, David, you could tell us, are they going to eliminate any of those, do you
Yes,
think?
yes,
Because that would be a real benefit.
those
Yeah.
would be eliminated.
Okay. And Warren is a wonderful neighbor. He's done a lot of great things. And I'm really pleased to see you're going to take down the building, because it's an eyesore and it's got holes and animals going in and out. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, ma'am. I didn't mean to rush to.
No, it's okay.
Rush to a vote without.
I've never been to one of these meetings, so.
Well, please come again. Is there any further discussion on the motion? And all those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I would like to.
Thank you very much.
I need the case number 2115, minutes of the Conservation Commission, which were being circulated, and I never came back to a file.
The
minutes.
minutes.
Yes, we need the Conservation Commission minutes back, your left hand.
I gave them to you.
It's right here. Do you have them?
Do I have it?
Yeah, I think Emily has them. They're right here. Yeah.
Sorry.
Those first two, the top two. And this.
Yes, there you go. Sorry.
Thank you.
My
That
apologies.
is, okay, these pertain to 199 Main Street. Still thinking, the Conservation Commission, a one-page approval relating to, the 33 Alden Road.
Are those the ones that Mr. Little read into the record?
No, it wasn't.
That was the historic group.
Yeah.
Didn't make it down this side, so
I think it's that side that has sticky fingers. so.
That was my memory, but I'm not willing to,
he circulated something with conservation.
One page.
I know.
No, it wouldn't be that deep into it.
I know. Putting pressure on us now, hopefully not the ones.
Well, we'll move on. Members of the board, I have case number 2117. That's the application of the Orleans Historical Society for variance as set forth in Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 10, under Orleans zoning bylaw, Section 16421A, to relocate the Hurd Chapel. The relocation apparently will straddle the lot line, requiring a variance to the 25-foot setback, which will create a setback of 0. Property is located at 139 Main Street, Orleans, map number 35, parcel 120-2. Has any member of the board had any communication with the Orleans Historical Society or any of its agents for this application for a variance? There's no positive response, therefore I declare the members of the board impartial and indifferent. Let the record reflect that the administrative review application for construction of the town of Orleans, the document I was looking for is now being inserted in case number 2115, making the record complete.
Do we want to go on record which side of the...
I don't know, it showed up.
You have to go to the
Just
tapes.
showed up here, Mr. Mulligan, I didn't notice.
I think the building inspector had it.
Very well, Mr. Kanaga.
Good evening, John Kanaga on behalf of the Orleans Historical Society. Interesting one in front of you tonight. Sorry for the large printout. It's a large property. But the portion we're talking about is very, very small. At town meeting, some of you may recall a vote in between the contentious votes about leasing town property to the Orleans Historic Society. This very small square that's the dotted line crossing the property from the Orleans Historic Society property to the town property is the lease. It's a 99-year lease. It is not signed. So my request for a variance is, probably needs language, that it's subject to a lease approval and execution by the Board of Selectmen, because it is. So in front of you tonight, it doesn't really matter how much they would have leased from the from the town of Orleans. They could have leased the entire lot next door, and it still creates the issue of it straddles the lot. The Hurd Chapel, it's, if you park across the road from here tonight, it's what you're facing. It's facing the wrong direction from the property. If it's facing away, the entrance to it, it's not used currently for the purposes they want to use it for, which is town access, people going in, seeing it, part of the museum, the meeting house. If you look at it, it basically makes kind of a village green in between the meeting house and the Hurd Chapel if they bring it up and have the door facing into the green. So the idea was to rent a small portion of property from the town so that they can do that. The variance request is, there's 0 setback, so it doesn't matter the size of the rental next door. It's not really the lease property that's the issue. It's the setback when the building straddles the line. So the variance request is for a 25-foot variance to the 25-foot setback requirement. The justification is based on hardship. I mean, you can kind of lump the hardship and the topography together. It's not being used because of the topography, so bringing it up in that formation allows them to bring it to the use, to make it accessible on both sides, to make people want to go into it, make them open up the building. The hardship is without the variance, they won't do it. It won't exist. It won't be used like that. And the impact on the public good is, that's a negative impact both ways. It's almost a positive impact by allowing it, because it allows you to access the historic structure. I might sound like a broken record. This sounds like a variance I've brought for the same client on a different property, but that's the idea, and I'm happy to answer any questions. It's unique because it's it's rare that you get a neighbor that rents a portion of a property to put a building onto it for 99 years. It's even more rare that that neighbor is a municipality, because municipalities tend to not give up property. But they're partnering with them or hoping to partner with them.
I have more, I think, questions and answers on this particular application. I think it's very confusing. In addition to the variance issue, which applies if you did it this way, what about the fact that there's now another portion of a building on what the town owns, and why isn't that also a variance for the town? Okay, are you,
I'm asking for the variance for the building to straddle. It's on that lot, so the variance is actually, the variance is for it to straddle the lot, so it's,
but the Historical Society owns one piece of property, the town owns the other. And I'm not sure what the legal ramifications are, because it's now leased from the standpoint of ownership. Is it the town owns that land still? Yes?
correct.
And if they do, there's a piece of property, is a building on their property, which basically requires a variance of some sort, because it now is adjacent to the property next to them. So, I mean, that's just a conundrum to me.
I don't think it is. I think the variance is the same. You're asking for variance to do this. I understand what you're saying. Hold on.
Yeah.
The variance is the same because you're asking, either it's a negative or a negative. If you're saying that the town needs to come for a variance to approve a setback, I'm asking for both because it's the same property. So the variance is on both sides of the line. It's zero.
Okay,
Because it is the line.
I was reading the way you're applying, though. Whatever they are, there's a Historic Society is applying for a variance for a piece of that building, which is on their property. Who's applying for the variance because there's a piece of there's something from the town's property that also requires a variance?
No,
Going the other way.
it's on the line. That's what, it's zero on both sides. So it's for the property that's being leased.
Cut the building in
Which-
half.
I don't think they're gonna do that,
No,
but
but, okay.
But.
I understand, I understand what he's saying, but
Take care of the Historical Society's half.
well, I think the division is he's asking if you lease a property, does the owner of the property still own it? Yes. But you have the right to occupy, you don't have the full fee simple on the property, you don't have the box of chalk, you have one piece of chalk. But you still have the right to apply for a variance for you to use that and do construction on it. Now, it's unique because it's on both sides of the line, but it's the same applicant, same person having the same right to the property, subject to a lease, which isn't signed yet.
Okay, that's,
It is, and by the way, if it's confusing, it's because it's confusing, so I understand that.
that's number one confusion. The second one, and I hate to engineer these things, but why don't they just turn the chapel 180?
I think that's where the hill is. I think if they move it up here,
They're spending
it's,
money to move it. I'm sure some smart engineer could go in there and reverse it, build it up a little bit, and now have the front of it face where the bell is, and they would have direct access to it. And that they would, by doing that, solve all the other problems that we're facing right now.
then there's a hardship, because without this variance, they would have to get, I'd have to get someone to do a study to show the fill, but
Well, it depends on.
50 grand worth of fill.
It's the word, what's a significant financial hardship? We don't know what that is, and that's no indication of who's suffering the hardship or how much or whatever. I don't know if it's $1 million or it's $50.
Well,
That number's not being presented.
because I don't think you're asking if there's another hardship. I'm saying the first hardship is it won't happen without that. You're saying, well, what about this? This might be another hardship. I mean, sure, it might have another hardship,
Hardships
but
are usually significant associated with the land or property which is unique to that area. And I don't think that's applicable in this particular case, personally, that's all.
I think this is an interesting argument, and though I'm not committed to this, at least initially, I support the notion that you need two variances. There's two separate properties. There's absolutely two separate properties.
I agree. The town of Orleans, when we faced this before, is not exempt from its own zoning bylaw. You would, in certain municipalities, the force of the municipality and its agencies trumps the application, and I guess under the theory that the building commissioner and the selectman or the mayor can, Public Works can figure it out and determine what's in the best interest of the town. But when the police station was being raised and rebuilt, we, and certain work being done at the middle school, we needed to permit it. And which kind of surprised me at that stage in my career on the zoning board. There's absolutely no question in my mind here that the town ought to be in here joining in this application. So, and we don't have topographical data, for example. Not that we can't see for ourselves with the site, but in the scheme of, and nor do we need to have an executed lease. I trust the select board to figure that out, but the fact of the matter is, there's a zero setback being created on the other side too, on the other side of the property line. I don't, there's different ways, you can't fix it by even a conveyance of land. The lease is probably the most sensible way, the way that lot 2 is configured, you really can't.
You'd have to subdivide.
You can't get enough of it, right, to, in that location for the chapel. You intend to, let me see if I understand it, there's no basement to this chapel.
I don't think there is.
So you're gonna lift it up, twist it,
And move it.
move it over. What's the timetable for this work?
I don't actually have a timetable, since the lease hasn't been signed yet. I think I mean, if we want to continue it, to allow me to, if I can continue this, I suppose, to add an applicant along with
I
it.
think that's the way to do it. I mean, the same people will be notified,
Yeah.
Because it's, what do you think, Matt?
Is there any precedent of this ever been done?
That's why I don't use the word unique lightly, because it is unique. And I think, I don't know of any, do you?
This is my bemused look.
Okay.
No, I don't believe so.
I
don't
mean,
know that we have any legal right to issue this variance or another. Maybe some of these other questions will reveal why we're here, but why a lease and not an easement? Why a lease and not a subdivision?
I think the answer is the municipality wouldn't give up land in perpetuity, forever. I think
Municipalities buy and sell land all the time, why wouldn't they
this,
be willing?
because this is in the center of town, across from the town hall, I would think. I don't actually know the answer to that question.
All right.
I wasn't part of the lease negotiation, just.
A lease is where we're at, and does that lease require any kind of a bond to move or demolish buildings on its property at expiry of lease?
I do not believe it did. It did require town meeting approval to lease public land to a private entity.
So leasing land is one thing, leasing land and then having a building moved onto it is another thing. Us granting any kind of a variance that allows a building effectively to be there in perpetuity creates a whole other mess that leasing 1,600 square feet of land doesn't, right?
I mean, just for the separate, I understand the separate application, and it sounds like you're going that way.
I'm trying to save you the time.
I know.
Yeah. Well, you could think about it, maybe there's other ways of doing it. There's, I'm thinking off the top of my head that, no, I still think the best, I just rather hear from the town.
It really begs Mr. Waugh's question of why they didn't choose an easier option. They have a lot of land there, and they could have done a lot with it as opposed to moving it over and encroaching on the town. I don't understand why all the necessary hoops.
Right, the idea of lifting it to get it up to elevation and making that sort of connection seems feasible to where we're not stuck with this being the only option.
I can take that to them both. I think on the separate properties, I would just say that it's the same applicant with the right to the property, is why I understand what you're saying, but,
I'm examining in my head the use of the chapel. It's not commercial, it's not residential, it's like a big shed that's being replaced, if it were, you know what I mean? And that might not
I'm sure
require us to...
I'm sure the original parishioners didn't think it was a shed.
Probably not, but I mean,
It is now.
It's going to be tricked out with nothing but electricity. We won't have plumbing.
I don't think so, no.
It'd be interesting to know
See what
the,
I'm driving at? It's like an outbuilding.
You're staying away from the B word, but I
Well, it's also the B word being bylaw,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Is there something behind bemused?
No, I have the same questions you have. Why was it done this way? It seemed to me to be, I can understand the town's reluctance to give up land, but it just seems to me that it could have been done. I don't really have a comment. I mean, I don't know what they're going to use the building for. Mr. Mayor suggested that it's going to be for public access.
I think
Now it's used for storage, as far as I know.
I think they're going to open it back up. You know, it's a historic building, and it was moved there. But I think the idea is, I think it was a long time ago. I don't really recall, but preserve it and open it up like the meeting house is on the same property. I understand the why, and I don't have an answer for why. As far as what was the decision that made them do this lease? And I think the town is probably the best entity to answer that, but.
I think so. If we would give the relief that you wanted, then a taxpayer should have a problem with the transaction that the town proposes to make with the Orleans Historical Society, and our decision was to grant a variance on one side but not the other. I think that where that kind of decision would be subject to attack, not only politically, but legally.
And I think the taxpayer did have a time to object to it when it was proposed as a warrant article to lease the land for this purpose.
Good, then what we ought to do is we ought to collect all of that as part of the application and make it complete.
Okay.
That's what I think.
And I'll,
Subject to any other thinking of the board.
If someone were to lease a property and put up a building for their use under a long-term lease agreement, who would be the person who would apply for the special permit? The builder of the house or property who's going to reside there, or the owner of the property?
The owner of the
Exactly. So in that same sense,
So Orleans Historical Society is right over here, for part of it, part of the transaction.
there's not a hill to die on, because I can just ask for them to come. That's what you want to hear.
That's hard to jump through. I just think it needs to be jumped through.
Okay, and it's not the cart before the horse, because it can switch, they're both horses with the lease. If the lease gets approved in the meantime, it can be subject to the ZBA appeal, so it's both work. The timeline-wise, I'm not really worried about it.
Well, that's what I was trying to see, whether any irreparable harm is going to be done by a delay here. That's what I'd like, wouldn't you?
Well, I think the irreparable harm would be the vote that would currently happen, so.
Very well. Then, what is your pleasure?
It sounds like August is out. So continue to the September hearing,
Yes.
and I will attempt to have a concurrent filing, and if we can, if there's a possibility of just putting them next to each other so we can present together.
That would be good. What would the first hearing in September be?
The 4th.
4. Then would you provide the board with a confirmation that you've requested a continuance till September 4th?
I will. Okay, yeah. Do I need to sign anything, or is there?
No, I don't have, sometimes we have that form available, but I don't have it tonight.
Okay, I'll just send it.
So something
Yep.
even by email would be good, so that we can put it in the file. It was your-
My idea?
That's what I was supposed to say.
It might also be pertinent to know what other options they might have looked at and why they're not feasible, considering that we are talking about costs under different matters, and we're also talking about what they're proposing as the result of a building. To me, it looks like it's skewed out of location from where, if you thought logically, what they're trying to do, the buildings should be adjacent to each other. They're talking about one accessing the other. So, I mean, a lot of things just don't make sense to me as to what they're trying to do. That's the best way to put it. And it's-
Goes back to what they said when they approached the town. And they must have had some compelling reason, I would think, but we don't
I will bring a compelling reason.
Yeah.
Very well.
September 2nd?
4th.
And members of the board, is there any further business to come before the meeting?
Did we approve the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
Then,
Move to adjourn?
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
Standing vote.
Motion carries unanimously.